he came in and wanted a stake for $1 million. And I think we're just satisfying his requirements, because I think really in terms of the smaller, capital investments that he's made, I mean, he's made many. We're probably one of the few that he's returned to and put additional money. To the extent now he's basically taking a stake of 19.9%.
Hello there, my friends. Chris Marcus here with you for Arcadia Economics, and another fun episode of the show today, because with everything that is happening in the gold and silver markets, where we're seeing a lot of pressure on these paper exchanges, and one of the reasons for that is one of several reasons that happened during the recent COVID experience that we've all been going through. A lot of mines getting shut down. A whole bunch of stuff going on, which fortunately Joseph Hebert of Outcrop Gold, kind enough to join me today. Joe is one of the guys going out, finding all the gold and silver that eventually gets into people's hands and gets into companies' hands that use these metals for their products. So great to have you with me here today, Joe, and get some insight into this. And how is everything going with you?
Oh, good, Marcus, and I appreciate the opportunity to talk with you and talk with the people that follow you.
Yeah, well, I appreciate that. And I guess to dig in, there's a lot of interest right now in gold and silver. We can leave aside the Fed and their theatrics today, where they're printing money at an extremely disturbing rate. Yet I thought it would be great to focus on the supply. People have heard a lot of the numbers of mines getting shut down. You're out there doing that every day. So anything you could share with that to help put that in perspective to folks and really how that's going to play out?
Well, I think you see a lot of depressed industrial demand, China and different places, that you're going to see a sudden increase in industrial demand. I think that also silver is clearly at a very historic low with respect to number of ounces silver, or I'm sorry, number of ounces gold to number of ounces silver. I think that rate's going to probably kind of slingshot silver even a little higher than what gold may do proportionately. And I think it's also important to point out that the overall primary the 12 largest primary silver producers in the world, the average has now fallen to 300 grams silver per ton for average production. And as has been reported in some of the press releases, our weighted average grades are more in the order of 20 grams gold and 2,200 grams silver. So we're grade is king. If you're looking for silver exposure, I really think our Santa Ana project presents some unusual world-class potential.
Yeah, and what's the status for folks who don't know? You guys are down in Colombia, and you talked a little bit before we hit the record button. What's the current status in Colombia, and certainly any other areas? Obviously, if you want to comment on Mexico as well, a lot of silver coming from there. Where do things stand now?
Well, Colombia has the perception of Colombia has always been worse than what the reality of the ground is with respect to security. What you find in Colombia is that it's security risks are more of a local problem. Tens of kilometers apart, you can have almost no security risk versus fairly high security risk. You're seeing almost all the guerrilla activity directed towards the military and the police, and not the civilian population. And the areas of concern are the highest area of concerns in the past where you have the original trafficking routes of arms and narcotics to the sea, either to the sea through the Chocó or through places where you have some support of the guerrillas in Ecuador or, of course, Venezuela. And otherwise, work in Colombia I can tell you, I think I'd rather be in Colombia than good parts of Mexico working.
Yeah. And you said that Colombia is currently shut down until August 31st is the latest they've told you?
The external borders to foreigners are shut till August 31st is what they're saying. It may be less than that, but that's what they're stating. The government is stating now. They're starting to lift some restrictions on internal travel. And as I mentioned, COVID-19 has had very little operational effect on Outcrop because we did get an immediate essential business exemption from other constraints that businesses and people have in Colombia. So we had like a 2-week shutdown, a 2-week delay on our drill program, and we've been drilling since about May 6th, I think.
Okay. Yeah, and that makes sense, and it's good to hear it hasn't interrupted things too much. Would you care to take a stab at, based on the conversations you've had overall, any estimate of how much you think, how much of the silver mining output as a whole has been lost this year during the COVID situation?
Oh, I think I heard the CEO of Hecla, for example, talking the other day, and they've had they're looking at up to 8-week disruptions in normal supply,
Yeah.
even though they're only looking at less than that in terms of actual operational restrictions. They have the it takes a significant amount of time just to build back up to production. When you shut a mine down, which a lot of silver mines has been almost completely shut down, it's as much lead time getting them up and running again as what the duration of the shutdown was.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how that unfolds. And perhaps another thing you could touch on, I know that as you've been advancing your projects, you have an investor that many people are quite familiar with, in Eric Sprott. Perhaps you could talk a little bit about that, how you got him on board, what it was that drew him to the project, that probably might be relevant for a lot of folks watching.
I think we had an introduction to Mackey Research Capital. And we really never had to make the approach to Sprott. He made it. He made the approach to us, and basically, informally with Sprott, you want to do 3 things: is you if you tell them something, you want to do it. If
Yes.
you if you and if you say you're going to produce results, then you want to produce results. And he will typically make a sort of a introductory investment in someone he likes, has a good report of the people, good report of the management, quality projects, a good track record. And he came in and wanted a stake for $1 million. And I think we're just satisfying his requirements, because I think really, in terms of the smaller, capital investments that he's made, I mean, he's made many. We're probably one of the few that he's returned to and put additional money into. To the extent now he's basically taking a stake of 19.9% in the company. So I think we just announced a $5 million financing this morning. It went out, I believe, and he will be the main lead on that financing.
Yeah, and especially a good sign to hear when someone like Eric comes back on an investment. I know a lot of the folks watching listen to his calls with Craig Hemke, where he talks often about how in his mind, the key is that, you look into a lot of different projects, but when you find something that has the success potential behind it, which certainly would echo my background as a trader, So it's good to see that he's ramping up what he's doing. And perhaps for folks who aren't already familiar with Outcrop, maybe you could just give a general profile of the risk. I know you have some drill results, and we, again, the link to that is in the description below. But for folks who are looking for leverage, a lot of people who think there's a big move coming in gold and silver, of which certainly I agree. And if you could just lay out, for folks who are looking for that leverage and different types of investments, the profile of what you guys are doing.
I think what Sprott and looks for specifically, and what people should look for in general, I think what I look for is actually in my exploration choices is go for the no-brainers. You have a lot of conceptual plays. You have a lot of plays that have been recirculated numerous times by different companies, or you have people putting drill holes into a pincushion, with not a whole lot of potential, and they're just trying to sort of, milk those results from a small area. What you have at Santa Ana is you have literally a 500-year mining history, probably by primitive methods. They've taken out almost 30-40 million ounces of silver to date. We're finding that that's alloyed with a substantial amount of gold locally. But it's just what the primitive mining history has given us. It's almost like several millions of crosscuts. What would in current dollars be several millions to produce of crosscuts over 14 kilometers of vein. And basically where the old timers were pulling silver and gold out, that's exactly where we're drilling silver and gold.
Yep.
We went in there on a very focused program at first to get a good dimension on two well mineralized chutes, and now somewhat it's an arithmetic exercise to sort of gauge potential. We can't. Dr. Drill always provides the answer, or the test. But if you drill and get some good continuity of a couple ore chutes in these systems, if you have a very wide distribution of ubiquitous workings that cut mineralized vein, it's overall, we can't say the size, of course, but overall, we can at least duplicate or triplicate what the historical Spanish colonial miners did. It's just the story. It's a huge testament to the story of that colonial Spanish interest, and the fact that we can go put our hands on mineralization. We can put a trench in it. We can put soils on it. We have soils that are running 11 grams gold, plus 300 grams silver. Those are going to be drill targets, and more than likely they're going to be drill hits. The other thing is we're on it. It's a fairly focused exploration model. So we have the drill rig turning now, and we intend to drill 13,000 meters of exploration drilling, and we think that that'll put us in the range of 20 or more of these mineralized chutes that can carry up to 4 million ounces of silver apiece. So, potentially a major property.
So if my thesis that the audience hears me talk about on a nightly basis, that silver is due for some good times in the underlying bullion price, sounds like you guys are doing well and in good shape with what you're finding there. And something that I think would be interesting, I always love hearing about this. We talked about it a little bit before we hit the record button, but can you explain for folks what it is like emotionally when you've spent basically your whole life, everything you've done building up as a geologist, and then you get the investors, you get the drills out, and then there's that period where you're wondering, what are we going to find? What is that like? Do you have a couple of nights where you're tossing and turning a little bit, or what? I'm just curious emotionally what that process is like.
Well, it's a roller coaster because you hang on every single assay, and you've got a whole bunch of other people hanging on every single assay. But I can tell you is the reason investors want to think about a place like Colombia. And the reason I went to Colombia was I spent a good part of my career in Nevada, actually, and been there, done that. You know, it's every uh, every outcrop in Nevada has 50 sample tags on it. You know,
Yeah.
whereas in Colombia, our if we don't think we have an outcropping deposit, not necessarily an outcropping mine, but literally, we're walking over outcropping high grade mineralization on 7 of our 8 properties, and the other property is Gramalote analog with lower grade but bulk mineable. Um, but It's why you get into the business, and it's crazy that gold is such a drug for a geologist, but and high grade is just so sweet because it's so robust. Robust grades are so durable in the market in the development stage. Um, it's a lot closer to that leap where you're starting to envision a mine in your future. Yeah.
And along those lines, could you just give us a quick rundown? You mentioned all the steps that go beforehand till you get to this point. Just to put that in perspective for folks, if you could let them know how long you've been down looking in Colombia and just a few of the stages that you had to already clear to get to where you are now.
Yeah, I'd say we've been there almost 9 years. And, um, people are right. Is some people say, well, I don't want a Nevada geologist in Colombia or a Colombia geologist in Nevada. But on the other hand, once you put in sort of the investment in the learning curve, basically exploration concepts apply from one place um, to another. And uh, so it probably took us 2 years, 3 years, honestly, to where we really felt like we were what we knew what we were doing, and probably most important is to be able to put prospects in perspective with other prospects. So
Yep.
then start you go through a lot faster weeding out process. Honestly, probably 7, 8 years ago, I picked up some projects that I would never pick up now in Colombia,
Yep.
uh, because you just sort of your hurdle for quality goes up as you realize what's available, and it's like if it ain't outcropping good outcropping grade over a big area, we don't go there.
Yep.
And that's a rare thing. I mean, I don't think in South America any place else but Colombia offers that. And that's because of the 40, 50-year insurgency that makes Colombia a Peru or a Chile 35, 40 years ago. It's it's a it's a it's a wonderful place to work as a geologist.
Yeah, and it's nice. It's nice when you have the experience already. Not people can't go a new place and do well, but I mean, it's just an advantage that you've been down there. You understand what the environment is like, and especially, I mean, when this particular time in history, where again, with everything that's going on in the world, a lot of reason to suggest we're going to see higher metals prices. So, seems like you're in a sweet spot there. Again, folks, if you'd like to see the recent drilling results, that's in the description link below. And Joe, perhaps just in wrapping up, I know you got a financing coming up, and folks want to get more information on that or just find out more about what you guys are doing. Could you let them know how they can find that?
Yeah, just go to Outcrop goldcorp.com and go to the contacts, and you'll see my email and my phone contacts right there. My phone's 775 340-0450. I try to take every call that I get, and otherwise I try my best to respond to phone messages.
Well, I appreciate that. We will have that information in the description below. And there you can see the Outcrop Gold site. So Joe, I appreciate you joining me here today. Thanks for shedding some light on, some of the mine supply and the different things that are going on. I know there's a lot of interest in that now, and also exciting to see how your career, I know these things don't just happen overnight, but a lot of the things that you've been doing for a long time have been building together. I think you're in a real sweet spot, so it will be exciting to follow along with your success. And thanks again for joining me today.
Oh, absolutely. I appreciate the opportunity.